Shalom friends, it's good to make another video again. Aaron said he'd like to put my mug up on the channel because it's been quite a while. So I'm going to continue with my series, which I thought maybe I'd be done by now, but life happens. Today I'm going to talk about birth story number 9. Number 9 is Sophia. So I got pregnant with Sophia when Rennie, who's number 8, was 3 months old. So that was the shortest gap that I've had between babies, and I was kind of surprised, but I wasn't nursing Rennie strictly in the beginning because Rennie was in the NICU, and that is supposed to affect how long, like if you're breastfeeding, you're not supposed to get pregnant as quickly, which I still get pregnant pretty quick anyways, but usually my baby is about 6 months before I end up getting pregnant. So yeah, 3 months old, he was still a little one, and if Sophia would have been born on her due date, they would have been 1 year and 1 week apart. So usually the kids are a year and 3 months. I would say probably the majority of them are a year and 3 month gap, but there's like a year and 5, 6, one that's a year and 7. So this was my shortest gap, and it's also my first VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean, since Rennie was the emergency C-section because he had the heart problem. So that was a different experience for me. My pregnancy, there's not really much to say about my pregnancy, as is usually the case. Sophia, everything went great, everything went smooth. A lot of times I'm just living life, not even really thinking, oh, I'm pregnant and life is different or I need to do things differently. I just go about my daily routine. And when I was pregnant with Sophia, we were just focused on taking care of Rennie. So I didn't really think a whole lot about being pregnant. But I'm sure I've said it in other videos, I feel really blessed that my pregnancies usually are pretty smooth. Whatever unusual things that happen, like, are just bumps in the road, I guess. So everything went well with that. I did have to get like an extra ultrasound because they wanted to check her heart, just because Rennie was born with a heart defect, and there was no reason to suspect that Sophie would have the same problem. I call her Sophie or Soph. Sophia is her name. I used to think that I would never use nicknames, but that went down in the drain really with number 2, baby number 2. So yeah, we use a lot of nicknames. So I had to get an extra ultrasound, but the cardiologist with Rennie, he went on to tell us that, it was just kind of a fluke thing that happened, and so there's no reason to expect it to happen in the future. So the ultrasound was kind of useless, but it gives the doctors peace of mind. So Sophie was late. She was 2 weeks late, and that is the latest that I've ever gone with any of the babies, because a lot of times the doctors, they don't want you to go more than a week late and then they'll induce you. But these doctors, I see a midwife, and that's a big part of the reason why a lot of times when you see a midwife, you have more flexibility in whatever birth plan you want. Hospital, the way that the doctors work, they just, I don't know, like things are a little bit more tight. Like the midwives would always tell me, like, well, usually the doctors want this test done and that test done and this test done, so what do you think about getting these done? Do you want to get all of them done? Do you want to get some of them done? So that's nice that I could have a little bit more say in what happens. So with Soph, I had contractions, 2 weeks. It seemed like I didn't know if she was ever going to come out. So, but I remember going to the hospital with Aaron, and I thought it was funny because we were walking to the through the hallway, and I discussed it with Aaron. I can't remember. I must have been induced, because I know that she was 2 weeks late. I know they don't want me to go past 2 weeks, but I don't remember if for certain if I was or not, but I think I must have been induced. And I know I was having contractions during the night, but sometimes it's, for me, I would say like with baby number 5 and on, I get the Braxton Hicks, the false contractions they call it, you know. So I don't know if I was having contractions only that night or if they were random other days. I used to think I would remember every detail, but yeah, I don't even remember like exact pounds of each of the babies, like how much they weigh. I only know a couple of them. But, so yeah, I don't remember all the details any longer. They all blend together. I remember walking through the hallway with Aaron, and the labor and delivery nurse was asking us if we're going to have a boy or a girl, and we told her we don't know, and we told her how many sons and daughters we have, and she's like, oh, I can't wait to find out what you guys are going to have. I'm so excited. And I just find it interesting that complete strangers really like want to know what we're having, a boy or a girl. And like when I go to stores and stuff, people want to know. And I remember one time somebody, they're like, they work at one of the stores I go shopping at regularly, and they're like, oh, I can't wait to find out until you have the baby. I need to know before then. So yeah, so they get eager to find out, complete strangers. So I was put up in a room, and because I was a VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean, I have to be monitored more so than if I weren't. I usually don't put on the monitors on my belly, and I don't normally get the catheter in my wrist, but I had to do those things this time because they want to be prepared if there's a problem. And I think the main concern with a VBAC is like, I think it's a ruptured uterus, maybe, like, because you were cut open. But nowadays people get sliced horizontally, and so the chances of that happening are much more slim than they used to be back in the days. Like back in the days, moms would get sliced vertically, and so then once you have a C-section, you always have a C-section because it's just too risky. but that's not the case any longer. So because the gap was short, I didn't know like if there was going to be any problems. Did everything have enough time to heal up? But we just trust God and His timing, and so we know that this was the time for Sophie to be here, and we trust that we're in His hands. And so I'm not gonna just have extra concern that isn't gonna change anything. So they monitored me more, and everything went well. I went through my contractions. I remember earlier during the time I was at the hospital, when my contractions weren't as hard, that Aaron, he read to me, which he does sometimes. So that day I remember that he was reading about the sinking of the Lusitania ship, which is like, I think they call it like the Titanic's sister ship or something like that. But anyway, so that was fascinating. And other than that, I remember that the machines would not stop beeping. And that was so annoying when it first started happening, and Aaron kept on shutting them off so they would stop beeping, and then they'd start beeping again, and he would go to the machine and make it stop, and they just wouldn't stop. And I remember Aaron making a joke about, like, a reference to a movie about buttons and beeping, and showed me a clip, and so it's nice just to lighten up the mood a little bit. I don't know the name of the movie that he was referencing.
Flashing, and they're beeping. I can't stand it anymore. They're blinking and beeping and flashing. Why doesn't somebody pull them together, sir?
But I realized that I thought, like, this stinks that I'm in the hospital and I have to listen to all this beeping, and this is not relaxing, and it's not, like, I don't know, like, nurturing, or I kind of think, like, it would be nice to just be at home and have my own environment around me. But because I couldn't change any of that, I just decided that I need to embrace all of the beeping. And so, like, a lot of times when I'm in heavy labor, I end up, like, swaying my hips back and forth as I'm standing, because just moving your position in any kind of way, your body position, is going to help get the baby down. So hopefully the baby will come out sooner. And so I was just swaying to the beeps. But hopefully little Sophie was making her way down quicker because of that. And I do remember that as I would have contractions, that I wanted to be very purposeful to bear down and push every time I had a contraction, to make the most of what my body was doing to get the baby out and to help get her out all that much quicker, hopefully. And I realized that I had, like, this mental block where I couldn't be on the bed and bearing down every time I had a contraction, because, I think, well, what if I have to use the bathroom and I'm sitting on this bed? And so, it's just natural tendencies, I think, like, that's the way we've been our whole life. We don't want to have an accident. So I actually spent a lot of time in the bathroom on the toilet because I wanted to bear down every time I had a contraction. And I remember my midwife, she says, okay, well, tell me when you want to come back to this world and visit us, because I just hung out in the bathroom for a long time. But I do believe that that really helped to get her down quicker and out quicker. So that's not something that I have done with each of my deliveries. I think, especially when I was a new mom, I would tense my body up as I had a contraction because it's obviously painful and uncomfortable. But with this one, I was very purposeful to just like work with the contraction. So I guess like for me, I needed experience to get to that point. When it became towards the end, like I was in the bed, and I don't know if at that point I was bearing down or not when I had contractions. I probably was, because really when you're close to the end, you're just like in so much pain going through the contractions that you don't really always care so much about like being ladylike. So I remember being in the bed, and I knew that it was very close to the time that I needed to push her out, and I was sitting in bed and Aaron was next to me, and then I had the midwife and the labor and delivery nurse on the other side of me, and the midwife and labor and delivery nurse, they were just watching me like they're watching TV. So I'm just trying to think about where the baby was, what's going on, when is there a contraction going on, and I would say like that I could feel her coming down, and at one point I was going through a contraction and pushing and helping to push her down, and the labor and delivery nurse, she is putting this blood pressure cuff on my arm, which they kept doing every few minutes. And so she wasn't putting it on right. She was putting it on below where it would go below my elbow, and so really trying to just focus on what's going on with my body right now as much as I could do so, because you know I'm going through all of this pain as well, and I'm trying to stay focused. And she puts it on me, and it starts squeezing my arm, and it's like, because she put it on too low, it's just pinching me and squeezing me, and I was thinking of the baby coming down, and I just tell her, get that thing off of me. And my midwife looked at her, telling her to get it off. So she got off the blood pressure cuff, so it wasn't squeezing me, and I didn't have to think about that any longer. And I pushed Sophie out, and she came out right away. Most of my babies come out very quickly. I only had to push, like a couple of times to get her out. And she was a little girly. I was really happy because we had the name Sophia picked out when I was expecting Rennie, and so I was happy to use her name. And she was healthy, of course, and she was 2 weeks late, so of course she was bigger. She was 9 pounds, but not my biggest baby at that point, because I've had, well, Benjamin was number 3, and he was 10 pounds 13 ounces, so he has the record in the family. But I've had number 1 and 2 were over 8 pounds, more like 8.5 pounds. So 9 pounds wasn't like, I don't know, crazy or anything for me. Not like super unusual. So, so with Sophie, I mean, delivery went great. It was smooth, it was fast, and healing was great for me afterwards. Because I had a VBAC, nothing was different with like delivery or with healing. Like everything went really great. I was, no complications, and I delivered the baby, and then I'm fine. Like I don't have any pain afterwards. So that's the way it's been for me ever since I've had any of them. And it wasn't any different with Sophia. So I was just really thankful that everything went well. The kids did not come to the hospital because I was able to not stay. I think it was like because of the time of day she was born. I mean, I had to stay in there like at least 24 hours or something, but I was able to get out really quickly. So that was good. And so yeah, the kids, whenever we have a new baby, even though we have so many, it doesn't get old ever, and all the boys and girls are really excited to meet their new baby sibling and find out if the baby's a boy or if the baby's a girl, and to hold the baby. And so it's fun to watch all of our other sons and daughters and just watch them adore the new baby and want to be near the baby as much as possible and love on her. It's a really sweet, and like it's just really special to have those moments. So I don't really know that I have anything else to share other than now Sophia, she just turned 4 years old, and she is a fun-loving little girl. She's laughing all the time and just enjoying the moment she's in, and so we're really grateful to have her. And Sophia means wisdom, so the Holy Spirit is referred to in the Bible as wisdom as well. So that's her name, our little Sophia. And I think that I don't know that I have anything else to say about this birth story with Sophia. So my next one, I feel like there's more to share with that one. But Sophie, everything was excellent. Couldn't have been any better. And I am actually thankful that my delivery with her was close to the C-section in the time, because it made me come to a realization that with such a short gap, a year and 3 weeks it was, if I was okay after that amount of time and there was no complications with having a VBAC, that I should be able to, in my mind, I believe, like, because of that experience going well with no complications and it being close together, where maybe there's more of a chance of complications happening, then like in the future my body has more time to heal where the where the stitches were. But so I just don't ever expect any other complications because I'm a VBAC mom. And so that's that. Hopefully I'll be able to share another video soon, and I'm sure Aaron has some good things to say. So, shalom, friends.
Sorry, Teresa, I don't know that I really have good things to say, but I'll share my thoughts anyway. First of all, I agree with Teresa. I think it's funny. It's just funny that she and I don't remember these details. Once we get to baby number 9, as well as we thought we would, we both felt like we probably would remember all those little details. For quite a while, I remembered, I mean, maybe at least 4 or 5 babies in. Maybe not 5, 4. I remember birth weight and even probably their length. And I still remember a number of birth weights, but I definitely can't get them all 100% right anymore. But she does remember a lot of things, and it's interesting for me always to listen to what she has to say about the birth story, because we talk about it a tiny bit before she makes her video, but then yeah, I'm kind of like remembering things as I'm listening. I'm surprised she remembered that I was reading to her about the sinking of the Lusitania. And Teresa's a very intelligent person, but a history buff she is not. That's more up my alley. And so the Lusitania was a passenger vessel that they say was sunk by a German U-boat in the lead up to World War I. I think it was sunk in 1915. And the sister ship to the Titanic that Teresa referenced would be the Olympic, I believe. Anyway, listening to her talk about the risks of VBAC prompted me to kind of look into it a little bit. I felt like she had it right, that having that, I think they call it a bikini incision, that small horizontal incision, and it is very small, that was that heals up much better. And I believe that with that incision, the percentages of ruptured uterus during delivery are something like 0.15%, as opposed to being like something like 0.3, like somewhere around 1/3%. It drops down even half of that, I think. But that includes people who have all sorts of risk factors as well, who maybe have attempted to have a VBAC, making their likelihood of a uterine rupture being higher. So when you look, that's just across the board statistical numbers there. But if you're looking at somebody who doesn't necessarily have a number of other risk factors, other than the fact that they had a cesarean, then who knows? I mean, the numbers might be really minuscule. But Teresa didn't have any other risk factors to be concerned about, so that was no problem. And yeah, the beeping, I remember that stupid thing, and you could silence it for a little bit, is basically what she was talking about. You could push a little button, and I've gotten to know that equipment all the times we've been in the hospital having babies, and I'd shut the thing off for a couple minutes and it'd start beeping again. And so that's another thing that she remembered that I did not remember, that I showed her the movie clip of Airplane 2 with William Shatner. That's a funny clip with him talking about all the beeping and flashing, and yeah. I'm surprised Teresa didn't mention it, but I believe that she would have been in the birthing center, the hospital that we were having our babies delivered at that time. That was a place where they'd opened up a birthing center, and it was supposed to be like this super plush, like a hotel room, kind of ultra private, really fantastic place to deliver a baby if you've got to do it in a hospital, in a medical setting. And because I think she would have been able to do it with Rennie, but because he was an emergency cesarean, she didn't. And then because she had the cesarean and did a VBAC, she didn't get to go in the birthing center. So she missed out on that, unfortunately for her. She was looking forward to it, if I remember correctly. And then just, she mentions stitches. That wasn't not that important, but the bikini incision for her cesarean was laser, and they put her back together with lasers, so there was no stitching. And yeah, I was also surprised. I mean, she was talking for both of us, and she was right. We were surprised that she was pregnant so early, but it makes sense. She was not nursing Rennie at all for the first couple of weeks, and then she was not nursing him exclusively at about 4 months. We talked about it. I don't want to make this about Rennie again, but we were very, very busy with him because he was born with that heart condition. Now, we shared in the other video, and it's worth watching, about number 8, that before he came home from the hospital, that the father, God healed him, and that's the reason he came home, and that we are 100% sure that he did not need to be on those heart drugs anymore, which were powerful drugs, but as much as we knew he physically didn't need them, we also understood that it would have been a really hard thing for us to even try to dream of not giving him those drugs and not continuing with the follow-ups that we were having to have on a weekly, and then at least a couple times a month after a while basis with the cardiologist. And his hands were tied because there was certain protocol that he was expected to follow, and he had to answer to people about whether or not he was doing that. So although Rennie was fine, we had never had any issues with him as far as his heart went. I was taking him to the cardiologist on a regular basis. We were giving him his heart drugs and waking him up to do it several times a day. He got these drugs, and we were checking his heart rate, especially early on, with a stethoscope pretty regularly, and a couple times a day or whatever. And so, and then at 4 months old, he developed these issues with his growth. He just wasn't growing properly, which I'm certain was the heart drugs, but that was a hard time. So this pregnancy with Sophia, number 9, went by very, very quickly. And I think, it was... Now, by the time Sophie came, Rennie was doing great, so that was good news. Because for a while, it was really a struggle with him when he wasn't growing. So I don't have anything else to say about that, pretty much at all, other than I want to end by saying that I agree with Teresa that it's just very special to have Sophie with us. She's a bubbly light. That's what she is. She's full of energy and cute and smiling, and just a free spirit. And our lives are better because she's part of it. Our lives together. And I don't want to make it seem like it ends, when right after the baby comes home. The kids are, they're still doting on their 1 and 2 year old siblings, but there's something really special about bringing home that brand new baby, and how much everybody wants to hold a baby. And I've probably said this a couple times, but I've always appreciated watching my folks when they've had the opportunities to hold the newborns, and for a while that was every one, and they've not been here for a couple. It's just not been something we could do. But when they're holding a brand new babies, you could tell them the hair's on fire, and they don't hear you. They're too focused on a little baby. And we see the same thing in our sons and daughters when they're holding their brand new baby brother or sister, and they're just so focused on how beautiful their little brother or sister is. They don't pay attention to anything else. And and our last little ones are grown up past being toddlers, I figure, because that's such a fun age and there's so much changing. I think that we'll both feel a little melancholy, a little sadness about that, probably, because it's something we've been very used to, having little ones around, and they're so sweet and special and wonderful. But Teresa and I were actually talking about it just today, how it's special for our older kids to have these opportunities with caring for little ones. And first of all, it's experience that lots of kids don't get, and it absolutely, we could just add something. It adds so much to their lives to have these little adorable, sweet people to help take care of and have loved them back. All very well worth it. There are things about living within this world systems that are difficult when you have a big family. There are definitely things that are harder than it would be if we had a smaller family. But, you know, what we get out of having our family be what it is worth far more than, you know, whatever, you know, you could think we're missing out on. So that's it for now. And I agree with Teresa, there's more to tell about the next one. So we'll talk about number 10 whenever she gets a chance to make that video. Until next time, shalom, friends.